Hello and welcome to the Your Revolution podcast. The Your Revolution podcast is a collaboration between Revolution Personal and Performance Training in Melbourne and the Me Project. The purpose of the Your Revolution podcast is to inspire you on your mission of betterment. Each week on the podcast, you'll meet game changers who have created extraordinary lives, and you'll listen to stories and lessons to empower you to make the changes necessary to your life. The Your Revolution podcast is committed to fitness, health, nutrition, mindset, community, education, empowerment, and betterment, and we hope that you can take what you learn here and apply it to your very own revolution.
Welcome back to another episode of Your Revolution podcast. Like most things, the podcast has been on a little bit of a hiatus since quarantine hit. Like most people, my routine was severely impacted upon, and I've got to be honest to my listeners today, I've personally fallen off the wagon big time with long sleep-ins, skipping training sessions, and excess amounts of Netflix. So I've decided to stop being such a lazy dude and get the podcast back up and running. So for this episode today, we're going to be joined by the owner of Pride Athletic and creator of the Northside movement in Clifton Hill, Melbourne, Mike Singline. Mike is known for his tenacious work ethic and never say give up attitude, establishing himself as an exceptional trainer within the health and fitness industry. So without further ado, let's welcome Mike on the podcast. Mike, welcome to the All Revolution podcast. How's it going?
Hey mate, good. We are rolling through this tricky time for us as a business.
Absolutely.
And we've been doing online stuff like everybody else, and we're just finding our way. But yeah, thank you for having me on.
No, anytime. So look, before we dive in, as we always do, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to give our listeners a little bit of an introduction into who you are and your journey through health and fitness.
Yep, cool. I guess I was a pretty active young dude, and I used to play a bit of everything, and mostly tennis, basketball, riding my bike, doing everything I could. And then that sort of stayed with me for most of my life. And then there's been a couple of things throughout it which have been limiting factors on me being able to be active. And that was chronic fatigue as a younger guy and through my high school years, and then multiple surgeries, which has slowed me down. And made me rethink where I'm at with my own training and stuff like that.
Okay, fair enough. So let's also, so touch back. So you kind of mentioned obviously you were quite an active kid growing up. What sort of, sparked your interest in wanting to pursue health and fitness?
The main reason is actually, so after having chronic fatigue for year 7 to about year 11, year 12, and missing a truckload of school and a time where I couldn't really do much on the exercise front, and then being prescribed exercise as part of my routine to help me get out of that. The main reason to go into the industry was to actually help people with chronic fatigue, and that never came to fruition. It never happened, just because it was pretty hard to work around with GPs and to get a general acceptance of what the right amount of exercise would be for an individual and how that would work. So that was my reason to get into the fitness industry, because I found the magic or the power in exercise so transformative for myself when I was going through that tough time.
Okay, and when were you diagnosed with chronic?
End of year 7.
End of year 7.
And it progressed pretty quickly to a point where it made walking difficult, and sitting up out of bed was quite difficult. So if anyone knows anyone that's had chronic fatigue, it can hit people quite differently. But for me, that was some of the symptoms, and then ended up basically at school a day, a fortnight for year 8 and 9, and somehow didn't stay down. That was Doncaster Secondary, helped me get through, and then so kept pushing through there, and then ended up, so I was in hospital for about 6 to 7 weeks at the end of year 7, and then back in hospital midway through year 10. So by that time frame, I still wasn't progressing that well. And then basically for the next year and a half from that second hospital stint, I started to find my feet again and was able to sort of get on top of it. Not without difficulty, but I was sort of able to get back to more of what would be considered a normal routine.
Yeah. And so you mentioned obviously it impacted your sort of schooling. Did it also impact from a social point of view as well?
Oh, totally. I was an absolute hermit crab, and I was a bit of a gaming addict, which didn't help my cause at all. But I would get stuck into Counter-Strike and I'd sit on that for hours.
Yeah.
But absolutely. So yeah, it was definitely a difficult time. There was moments where I wasn't talking, and I remember quite vividly that I'd blink at my mum to be able to answer to her, and we had a system like that. And part of that's probably depression because of the condition, and then part of it's just that I really didn't have any energy at all. So yeah, pretty interesting time for sure.
Wow, well that's something I actually had no idea about. I mean, obviously, I've known you for a few years now, yeah. Wow. So okay, well let's fast forward a little bit from there. So obviously you've started in the industry. Do you sort of remember where you got, I guess, your first break, or where'd you first work? And
yeah, so I had gone from Macca's to Price Attack Hair Company, which if you saw my hair now, which is pretty awkward because it's horrendous. And then so I was advising on people buying shampoo and conditioners, and I thought I didn't have a career there. So then I moved into the fitness industry, and I started at Focus Health and Fitness in Bulleen, which is actually, so at the time it was owned by Trav, and he still owns Focus Gyms in Tullamarine and Yarraville. And he owned the Focus Gyms that Luke Scott, who runs Revo,
I know very well.
yes, also used to work for Trav. So, and Trav was an absolute legend, and I sort of found my feet in there. We had a really great manager in Jason, and there's something quite special about a small community-style gym, and we had some great staff, and it's that's where I found my feet for the industry and my passion for it. And I did a traineeship for 12 months, and then I got stuck into it from there. So.
Okay, nice. Now, can you talk about, I suppose, your training methods and philosophies, and have they sort of changed over the course of time?
Absolutely. So, like every other trainer that gets into the industry, you learn how bad you were at the start, and so you'd go through with the mentality that flogging the crap out of everybody was probably the right way to do it, and then eventually you learn that there's much better ways than doing that all the time. So it's been shaped by doing a lot of courses, and I'm lucky that I've been able to find further education, I guess, after completing the initial Certificate 3-4 in fitness, and I was able to go to uni, which helped me shape my thoughts with it. Jim Jones has been a really big component for me, and Jim Jones was a group that was based in America and started by Mark Twight, who's a mentor, I guess, from afar for me, and someone that I follow quite closely. And his sort of philosophies around training and exposing yourself to difficulty and overcoming have really stuck with me, and have really guided me in how I deliver training programs here, and my expectations on my own training and how I want to prescribe that to others.
Now, I suppose for our listeners, we should point out that Mark Twight was the man who, I guess, got the 300 cast into shape. That's where he sort of burst onto the scene. Is that?
Quick summary about him. He's, I guess, an elite mountain climber, and from his experiences, and he was exceptionally good back in the day, and he's written a couple books about it, but from his experiences of exposing himself to some serious scenarios, he then was able to create at the time, what was a small training community that wanted to pursue their own physical feats, and they could use the mental toughness or resilience that he could build with his programming. And so he started with that, and it started quite small, and then it grew popular because it was different to what the industry was offering as a norm. And so it's taken me to Perth and Sydney, and Sydney's got a great gym that sort of runs loosely off this style of philosophy, or it's part of their thing called 98 Riley Street, which is a great setup. And then we actually went over to Utah, I think twice, to do the further levels of certifications there. And one of those weeks was a full-on week of pretty intense training, and that was an amazing thing to be a part of about 3 or 4 years ago. So,
I'm sure, that probably would have been really whipped you into shape.
It's full on, like 2 sessions a day, and you do a test in the morning, you do something at night that was horrendous, and you just keep turning up. And Salt Lake City's at altitude, and
it is,
so you're about the same level as, I think, Bulla, and that makes a substantial difference to when you're doing a 2,000 metre row. And we found that when we got there. I actually went over with Nathan Tiepo, who runs Momentum in Port Melbourne, who's been on this podcast.
He has been on this podcast.
And we went over together, and I was sick as a dog. And we had about 2 weeks of travelling before this 1 week course started. And we were cruising around, and I'm in emergency doctors over in New Orleans. And I just couldn't, my ears were blocked, and I was a mess. And I knew that I was very, very close to doing this 1 week of hell. And part of the week is you have to hit particular standards, which was a thing that drew me to Jim Jones at the time. And they had 2,000 metres in under 7 minutes on the rower. They had 2,000 metres on the ski in a particular time. They had a deadlift standard and all of these things. So in the back of my mind, I knew that I had to get better to be able to try and achieve these. But
Wow. Another name, because I remember when I first got exposed to Jim Jones, it's probably, I think, anyone when they hear this name, they probably would shudder or maybe run away, would be the tailpipe.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what that entailed?
We've done that a bit. We did that, I think, at level 1. And tailpipe is named after the breathing response that tends to happen about midway through it, which is you feel like you're trying to suck in oxygen through a tailpipe, and that doesn't work very well. So that's part of, this sums up what they do pretty well, and it's not sadistic or it's not meant to be that. It's just meant to present.
And probably feel like that.
You're probably hating on the person that delivers it to you. But for tailpipe, for example, it's 250 metres on the rower, and you have a partner that's holding rack position kettlebells. The standard for Jim Jones was 224, so you had to hold 24 kilo kettlebells, 48 in total, up on your chest, and the other person rows 250, and you basically have 3 turns each, and you do it as fast as you can. And it's amazing what 5 to 6 minutes of gross stuff can absolutely feel like. So
and although you talked to our listeners, what's sort of the the thoughts that go through your head when you're doing one of these sort of workouts?
I don't know. I thoroughly enjoy it. I do all of the programming for our programs here at the studio. So our studio Northside Movement, we've got a couple of different groups, sort of class offerings that we do. I like the difficulty if it has a meaning behind it. Yeah. And I think sometimes the meaning can be whatever that is for the individual. We'll prescribe it in a way of we're trying to build strength or we're trying to build some type of fitness attribute. Depending on the individual's needs, and they can take away what they want from it. But I do like taking people to that uncomfortable place when there is something further beyond just beating them up for the sake of it. But and we do it quite regularly in here, but we also balance that out with some other lighter Zen type things.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's fast forward a little bit now. So you obviously you paid your dues big time. Obviously, definitely in Utah, and you've obviously found your feet in the industry. Let's talk about, I suppose, the present and how Pride Athletic came to be.
We were sort of working. We've been in the industry now at this point probably for about 8 years, and we were pretty keen on doing our own thing.
Yep.
And Pride Athletic was an existing business in Clifton Hill, which is a women's only training program that we were involved in the coaching aspect of it. And at that time, the owner wanted a change in career, and we had the opportunity to be able to take over. And it was great. So we're still here in this building, but we've got a really large warehouse in Clifton Hill.
Yep.
And what came with the warehouse was an amazing bunch of women that we're training in the Pride Athletic program. And this is everyone ranging from low 20s up to probably about 60 years old or so at the time. And we were able to take over and sort of develop that program and sort of put our spin on the training prescription and look after it. But one of the main things that we sort of inherited there was this incredible community of support, and it's been great, and we've been able to deliver a high level of athletically focused training to women, where I don't think that that's really out there in the fitness industry at the moment. I think there's a lot of push to do a lot of jumping around or interval style training all the time, and without the strength aspects or balance behind it. And I think we've been able to sort of shape a pretty interesting training program for the ladies that train here.
Yeah, well, that's actually a good segue into my next question. What would you say are some, I suppose, the common misconceptions about strength training for women?
I think just that, obviously the standards of if we pick up weights, it's going to make us look bigger. It doesn't work like that. I've been doing weights for 12 years and I'm no bigger than what I was 10 years ago. So I'm stronger, maybe. But so there's that misconception. There's a bit of a conception that people need to do interval training every single day and semi-take themselves to somewhere hard. But it lacks the balance, I think, from a whole to recognise important things for the female body, in particular those that have had kids because they go through substantial changes, or the aging female body can be quite different as well.
Yep.
And to take those things into account. So we do a mixture of strength stuff. We have days which are strength focused here. We have days which are conditioning focused. We also encourage recovery practices, which are really important as part of our training, which is good sleep habits, stretching and mobility practices, getting physical treatment like massage when you can, a good diet, breathing practices, all of that stuff to do to complement the stress that we're placing onto the body with our training.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Cool. Great answer. And in terms of, I suppose, the day-to-day operations, what are you sort of? Do you sort of oversee all the sort of training? Are you like, you sound like you're pretty hands-on, but are you doing all the classes, or do you have? How does
we are incredibly hands-on, and so basically at the moment we're the exact opposite, and I'm a computer nerd, just sitting here punching numbers in all day and running stuff on the computer. But typically we run most of the sessions ourselves. We've had a small team with a couple of trainers that sort of help out, and but we love to get involved in the training side and to share the training experience that we would want ourselves, and what we want to be able to deliver is an enjoyable training program that pays attention to details, because I think details are really important and has more meaning behind everything that we do. And we can back ourselves that we do pay a lot of attention to that. We spend a lot of time doing that stuff. And we just like to get in front of people and get sweaty and exercise, because we know it's important and we feel good. So we're about 95% training operations, and then 5% of our time we try and get on the computer and do the admin stuff as fast as we can. But at the moment that's switched. But
no, for sure. And I suppose in terms of talking about the culture here, it sounds like a lot of your clients or members get quite involved in a lot of other things outside the gym as well. Can you talk about some of the work you do, or outside of the gym?
So as a community, we think we really want to encourage people to get outdoors and to train and to be involved in more than just an exercise program. And we'd consider ourselves that, and the word movement, I guess, in our studio's name is probably important, because there's more components to just coming in and doing exercises that make us tick. And we do lots of stuff outside of here, whether that's hikes or dinners out or whatever it is, to try and develop that community and keep people in contact, because we've got a really great group of like-minded people that like to connect, and this is such a positive place for them to be able to come to and enjoy each other's company and sort of build each other up. And it's probably one of only a few places that does specifically that, where you can walk away feeling better each time, and we know for a fact that every single time that you can come here, you'll walk away feeling pretty good. And so if we can get outside and on top of doing things in the studio, and if we can do that together, then we absolutely want to encourage that as much as we can.
Oh, fantastic. Now, you're also known for training some pretty like-minded individuals on Saturdays. Can you talk about the Elite North Squad?
Yeah, the North Squad is our version or representation of a session that we used to do, or that we have experienced through the Jim Jones sort of phenomenon, which is called FYF, and that stands for Fuck You Friday.
You can swear.
Yeah, cool. Fuck You Friday. So, and basically that was just a solid beatdown in whatever aspect that would take you to a pretty dark place psychologically, and see if you could get out the other side. And tailpipe might be an example of something that could be thrown into that style of session, but we like to throw out a challenge that creates a little bit of fear, and not bad fear, but just fear of whether it can actually be done. And then sure enough, people can always get there to the end, or at some point it's going to have to end anyway. So we've had a great group training in here that are really committed to that. We've never really advertised it. We keep a pretty small scale. It's pretty hard to sell a program where we say come in and we're just going to flog you for an hour, but it's a special type of person that wants to get involved in that. But and that's something that's a passion of ours, and it's amazingly I guess transformative to be able to do that sort of thing, and then you come away from that one very, very hard training session each week, and the rest of it just doesn't seem that bad anymore. So the perception that you can gain from doing stuff like that is quite powerful.
No, fantastic. Now, you're also known for being an avid cycler. Can you talk about some of your most recent efforts in the saddle and I guess some of the charities and fundraisers that you've been involved in?
We very, very keen cyclists. It sort of came upon us at an earlier age than expected because I think people start to put Lycra on once you get closer to 50. But for us, it sort of happened mid-20s, and that was after 3 knee reconstructions. And my basketball days were over. They were never that good anyway, but my basketball days were done, and I needed to take my competitiveness and sporting sort of prowess to something else, and cycling was where I found my feet. And it's been great. So I've been able to sort of work my way through different events, and there's something quite powerful about cycling. It's something in the adventuring side of it where you can go quite far. You'd have to be a bloody good runner to go and run the distances that we can cover on a bike. But so we've done 3 peaks. This was my 4th year this year, and this is by far the hardest riding day I've ever had out on my bike. I wasn't sure if I was going to get through that, but for those that don't know what 3 Peaks is, it's called the Peaks Challenge, but it's at Falls Creek, and it's a 235k bike ride with over 4,000 metres of elevation, where you basically start at Falls Creek, you end up at Falls Creek, and you do 3 pretty gross climbs. And so that sort of stuff just, really gets us going, because it takes a lot of work to get to a point to be able to do that and to do it well. And it's a very special thing to be a part of. So outside of doing our own events and keeping ourselves sort of moving with those challenges on the bike, I was pretty lucky to fall into some charity work with a group called the Silver Lining Ride for the Ovarian Cancer Research Foundation, and we rode from Adelaide to Melbourne. This is probably 3 years ago, which is a pretty solid distance. I reckon that was a touch over 1,000k. And we stopped at little country towns along the way, and that was awesome. I sort of fell into that just off the basis of I'm pretty handy on a bike, and I feel like I can use that for some good more than just me enjoying riding. And I was able to be the experienced rider in a group of probably less experienced riders, we'd say at the time. And that was found out on the first day when we ticked off our first 100k day, or maybe the second day, but we went over 100k's, and we recognised that 8 of the 9 riders, so everyone excluding myself, had never ridden over 100k, and we still had about 900k's to go, and it was going to be pretty interesting from there. And that was just awesome. So it was such a cool thing to get involved with a charity like that, which is so small scale, and they do so much powerful work. And ovarian cancer has never directly affected me or anyone in my family, but to be around people that it has impacted was quite moving. And we could make a really solid effort to try and help a program like that just by riding our bikes. And that was also a moment that really threw a challenge at me when I came down with the flu, which was influenza B, which we found out later. But about midway through, I thought I was sweating a little bit too much at night, and I started to get quite sick pretty quickly, and I had to keep riding, partly out of ego, because I was the most experienced cyclist there, so I could not get through it.
That's right, yeah.
And I had to, I just had to do it, and it was really, really bad, and it just sort of, I got to the finish line, and I was absolutely zonked, and I remember we get to the end and we're all sort of a bit teary because it was quite an emotional experience for everybody. And the doctor wasn't that impressed 2 days later when they found out I had the flu and I'd been riding my bike all the way. But I won't do that again, nor would I recommend that to anybody, because it took a while to get back. But it was just an amazing experience, and I was able to get involved a little bit last year. And the group's still going and still throwing ideas around for the next charity ride. So,
fantastic effort, and obviously for a great cause as well. So, well, let's move into, I suppose, a bit more into the present now. As obviously, most of us know in the fitness industry, I suppose the close downs of non-essential services include gyms and leisure centres. Can you talk about, I suppose, the challenges and some of the things you were doing, I suppose, to get through, one, this period for yourself, but also for, I guess, Pride and its members?
So one of the challenges for us is my partner, Natty, and myself, we run the business together.
Yep.
And we've also got a little girl, Ella, 10 months. So she is 100% at home. And we've just been trying to get through her and her teething issues at the moment, which is probably the greatest challenge of them all. But
yes.
So we're working our way through those. From a training standpoint, we're probably lucky in the sense that we have a pretty good online program here, and part of that is us getting in front of the camera and exercising daily, and it's caused us all sorts of pain. Like, to do this amount of training, we feel like it's important to set the standard on the camera in terms of the difficulty that people should be experiencing with things that should be hard.
Yep.
And to do that, as often as we're doing, we're waking up pretty tender. So we've kept a good training structure. We've been frantically busy redirecting our business, both for the immediate and then for the future as well, on what we want to sort of change and add in and provide more service to people. So we are doing probably longer days than what we were doing from a business standpoint, but it's just very, very different at the moment. But from a mental perspective, I think it's, we're opportunistic about it. It's fantastic to be able to spend more time, with Ella, for example, for myself, and we can read books and learn, and we can do operational stuff, which we've been horrendous at doing for about 3.5 years. We've left that in the background. So
sure. No. Yeah, fantastic. Now, what advice, I suppose, would you have for those who, I suppose, are struggling to find motivation to train, and more importantly, even trainers themselves? Yeah,
exercise is something that's really important to me, and it's just such a must-do priority, I guess, every single day, week, whenever. And I think the importance of it is in the power of how you actually feel after a training session, and all the associated benefits of doing it. And we just know that the more we do it, the better we tend to feel. It's a slight redirection on goals, on what we can maybe do at the moment. You might be used to throwing a barbell around or doing rowers, and you might not have access to it, but that's where we've got to be creative as, I guess, leaders in the industry, to be able to prescribe stuff to the masses that people can actually do, and to retain some level of quality and meaning behind the training that we're doing. And we can absolutely do that if we think about it, but still give people the right, I guess, ethical sort of exercise prescription that they should be doing. We're basically working on 3 things here for our members. We're just saying that we want them to exercise as often as they can. We've got a weekly step challenge to see how many steps we can get in a particular day, and hopefully that transfers across, which is called Walk It Out Wednesday. And so far there's been a couple of people which are throwing down numbers of 30,000 plus, which is getting a bit out of hand. So I'm nowhere near that. But and then we're talking about nutrition a fair bit, just on general things that people can do to avoid eating absolutely everything in their cupboards, which is something that I am at risk of.
We've all fallen into that trap.
Absolutely.
We just had Easter just more recently as well. So very good. Now, I suppose some of the strategies in terms of keep the gym running, can you also talk about the delivery of more sort of like the online content that you've been able to provide? Yep.
So we went from 100% hands-on to 100% online in a very, very short amount of time. So we've sort of learned our way through there quickly, and we are still learning. And but we're using Zoom for our online training, which is fantastic because it's interactive, and we want to be interactive. We want to connect with people.
Absolutely.
And we can do it through there. And as a trainer, I can mute people, which is fantastic. So I can turn people off when I want to turn them off, and I can turn them on if I want to get feedback. And that's amazingly... that's a blessing in disguise. But we're doing that. We've got exercise programs available using an app called PT Distinction, which is really nice. There's heaps of them, but that way we can get videos and give all the details that are necessary. But we do find that the online stuff that we can do in an interactive setting for us is more beneficial, just because we have that connection to people, and we can advise and correct technique and help them work to where they should be working for that sort of stuff. And then outside of that, we're just on our Facebook members sort of communities as often as we can be, and starting to utilise social media, which we've been very slow to grab onto over the last few years, but we're starting to wrap our heads around social media.
Oh, very good. Now, obviously, it's a bit of an unknown period in terms of how long this is going to go on for, but where I suppose do you see the future or direction of Pride, let's say 5 years' time?
Yeah, we've got loads happening in the background at the moment. So Pride is our women's only component, which falls as a small group training offering that we do. So from the back end of this, we're pretty excited to be able to do some more stuff in a mixed setting with groups. We've actually got spin classes, which are going to be coming in once we reopen. They're actually online now, so we've delivered all of our cardio gear around Melbourne, which was a bit of a mission. But so we're running spin sessions, so we'll be able to do those and sort of tweak our group offering a little bit. Still keeping it small group. I guess in 5 years, we still want to be able to do that. We still want to be hands-on, and we are movement-based people that like to deal with people. And so I guess for us, it's about systemising the business as best we can, so we don't have to spend all of our time on a computer. And then trying to get out there with people and exercise and do as much as we can there. So it's staying similar to what we do now, just helping more people, maybe in a slightly bigger space in 5 years.
No, great answer. Now, I suppose some closing questions. What advice do you suppose you give to someone wanting to pursue a career similar to yours?
Well, experience absolutely matters. You got to put yourself out there and learn. There is so many resources to be able to learn from, and I've personally done a truckload of courses, and I'd probably say 95% of the stuff is irrelevant to what we do now, but that 5% that we can take away from each one is very, very useful. And so that's just from exposure. There's heaps of leaders out there that are very interesting to listen to and willing to give their time and knowledge. So I guess it's putting together a bit of a group of people to mentor you further than that first level of certificate 3 and 4, which tends to be quite entry level. And then whether that's uni, I don't know if I'd say that uni is the be all and end all in this particular industry. I think it's useful for a school of thought, but I'd say there's some people that are more immersed in the experience of training people and everything that comes along with that. So finding that mentorship group and following through on getting some further education, I think all the time is really probably the most important thing that someone could do.
No, fantastic. Now, here's a little curveball question I like to throw around every episode. So if you were the podcast host, so if the roles had switched, what would you have asked yourself that I haven't already have asked you? And you have to answer it, of course.
I have to answer. I think you've covered most things pretty well. You've done well as a host, should I say. Good work. In terms of what we haven't really covered, I guess the things that I think we spoke briefly about sort of what shapes our own training prescription and how we go about addressing this with people. And I think the most important thing behind all of this is sort of purpose, and it sounds cheesy, but just as someone that is a bit OCD about detail, I think that's, as a leader and in this industry, I guess if we own a business, we have to consider ourselves one of these. That we need to be able to put out clear expectations and purposes behind why we deliver particular things in a way. And I think that's really, really important. And there's a lot of noise, obviously, now. A lot of people are keen on exercising and doing things, and I think it's important to understand the principles behind why we do each thing, where it can be beneficial, and to then listen to people's individual motivations and to be able to guide them as necessary. Not everyone wants to be an absolute fitness junkie or to do that, and nor should they. So if they want to, they can go through the experience of doing some tailpipes or whatever it may be. And then if they just want to move and feel better, then it's a completely different prescription. But I think it's paying attention to people's individual reasons for what they want to get out of it. And I think I think that's something we could discuss more. But
Okay. Not very good. All right. Well, I did say we'll close, but we are definitely closing this part now. Before we get on to, I suppose, the 20 questions, which, you're going to be put on the spot here shortly. Where can our listeners, I suppose, connect you online, or if they want to find out more about you?
Cool. So they can get onto Instagram. So we've got an Instagram page, which is at Northside Movement NVMT. One word. There's about 4 photos on there at the moment, so it probably wouldn't be that interactive for you. You've got our Instagram for our women's component, which is Pride Athletic.
Yep.
Otherwise, our website is northsidemovement.com.au, and you can find stuff about the business. And we are about 70% through developing a new website.
Yep.
So we'll have that ready to go with an up-to-date sort of reading on what we're actually doing at the moment, which is good because we've got time to do that stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, perfect. Alrighty, well, let's get on to the 20 questions. Like I said, they're just going to basically involve sort of maybe short responses or maybe a little bit of detail, but are we ready?
I'm ready.
All right,
Ready
here we
as
go.
I've ever been.
Starting off. Squats or deadlifts?
Deadlifts,
Bench press or strict press?
strict press,
Dumbbells or kettlebells?
kettlebells,
Row or ski?
row,
Drive or navigate?
drive.
Most annoying habit?
Most annoying habit. I'll come back to it. I've got nothing at the moment.
All right, 3 things that you can't live without.
Food, 100%. My bike,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know. I'm probably going to have to say sleep. I think sleep's really crucial.
Fair enough. Favorite movie?
Remember the Titans?
Good one. That's a very popular answer on this podcast.
Yeah.
Favorite sports team?
I'm going to say all of the NBA teams. There's 30, so all of the NBA teams. I can't pick one.
Fair enough. Burgers or tacos?
Tacos.
Ooh, okay.
More diverse.
Okay. One word to describe you.
Always on. There's 2 words, but yeah.
Okay. Signature dish?
Oh, lasagna, 100%.
Nice. What's the best Wi-Fi name you've seen?
Best Wi-Fi name. I don't know. We've got like some weird Optus thing with about 15 different digits after it, so I'm going to have to say that. But yeah, I don't have another option.
Fair enough. Do you have any superstitions? And if yes, what are they?
I've got plenty, and let's just say the most basic one would be sort of coffee has to start my day, so that's part of it. If that falls in
It's
line
right in
with
front
it.
of us. So
Yeah,
very good.
yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Favorite word in English?
Oh, definitely not pivot at the moment. Favorite word, and 100% not epic. I've got words that I don't like, and I like most of the rest of the English language. So epic is not on there.
Okay.
I like the word fabulous, but I don't feel like I can pull it off. But yeah, fabulous is probably my favourite word.
All right. Fair enough. What is the most ridiculous fact you know?
Well, we did online trivia last week, and part of our online trivia was about slots. And so we had 10 questions for slots. So I know everything to know about slots.
Yep.
One of the questions, or one of the facts was that 3-toed sloths actually fart out of their mouths.
Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
You
heard it here first. Yeah.
There we go. Heard it here first.
Yeah.
All right. If you were president of the United States for one day, what would you do?
I'd be sorting out Trump at the moment, I'll tell you. I'd be doing some different stuff over there, but let's say I'd be cleaning some stuff up over there for sure. It'd be a big list.
Fair enough. All right. If you had 2 superpowers, what would they be?
Okay. I don't know why my brain automatically goes to food, but it'd be something to do with like being able to eat more than what I do, which is already a gross amount, but maybe a bottomless pit of a stomach so I can enjoy food more. And I guess flying would be pretty cool. So let's say flying.
Flying and eating or consuming in large amounts.
Yeah.
All right, very good. And last question. If you were not a fitness trainer, you would be?
A chef for a world touring cycling team.
Very nice.
Yeah.
I like that. You
Travel and food.
Yeah, travel the world.
Yeah.
Food.
Yeah.
Hope on the bike as well.
That's right.
Burn it off.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. Well, fantastic. Well, we will leave it there. Thank you very much for joining me. This is episode 113. Just for one last, if anyone to reach out, so we find you are based in Clifton Hill in Reeve Street.
Yep. Yeah, Clifton Hill, Melbourne, so they can get in, they can find us here. At the moment, the studio's closed most of the time, as it is, but otherwise you can connect with us online. My Instagram's Mike_Singline, so they can jump on there and
Brilliant.
do that.
All right, well, thank you very much for your time, and yes, stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you.
Thanks, mate.